At 58, Deion Sanders destroyed his career? That's what the headline screamed when Primetime threw five straight punches at his former teammate Andre Rison during a heated on-field confrontation. But the truth behind this explosive moment reveals something far more powerful than career destruction. It's a story of brotherhood, betrayal, and redemption that shows how even the most bitter conflicts between friends can ultimately strengthen their bond. The relationship between Deion Sanders and Andre Rison represents one of the most unique partnerships in modern sports history. Their story began in Atlanta during the late 80s and early 90s, when the Falcons were building a new flamboyant identity around two of their brightest stars. Sanders earned the nickname Primetime with his electrifying persona, while Rison became known as Showtime for his equally spectacular offensive skills. These weren't just teammates sharing a locker room. They were an inseparable duo, an unshakable brotherhood that flourished both on and off the field. Both players were arguably the best in the league at their respective positions, carrying their competitive fire into their personal lives. They constantly tried to outdo each other with flashy lifestyles, competing over who had the most impressive mink coats and sports cars. This friendly rivalry was essential to their dynamic, creating a bond that seemed immune to professional sports pressures. Their connection went far deeper than typical friendship. Rison himself later provided the most insightful description of their partnership, comparing their dynamic to the legendary alliance between Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen. He explained that they rode each other's coattails and became legendary together. This perspective reveals they viewed themselves as a packaged brand, a synergistic force that elevated both their careers simultaneously. When Sanders eventually left Atlanta, it wasn't just a personal decision to leave a friend behind. It represented the dissolution of a highly successful professional alliance, an act that could be perceived as profound betrayal of their shared legacy and brand. The conflict that followed became a public spectacle, but its roots lay in the sudden fracture of a strategic partnership that had defined both their careers up to that point. If you're fascinated by stories of athletic rivalries that run deeper than competition, make sure to subscribe and comment below about your own experiences with friendly competition that got a little too intense. These behind-the-scenes relationships often reveal the most human side of our sports heroes. The central catalyst for friction between Sanders and Rison was Sanders' departure from Atlanta following the 1993 season. Research reveals a crucial detail often missed in public narratives. The true motivation wasn't financial gain, but pursuit of professional validation and legacy building. Sanders became an unrestricted free agent in 1994 after spending 5 seasons with the Falcons. His decision to sign with San Francisco wasn't about maximizing salary. He agreed to a 1-year deal worth between $1.1 and $1.2 million. This was remarkable because it was well below what he could have commanded focusing solely on earnings. Other top players that season earned significantly more. Quarterbacks Steve Young and John Elway were earning around $4.5 million, while even his new teammate Jerry Rice was pulling in $2.6 million. Meanwhile, Rison was making only $797,000 in cash with Atlanta. The salary comparison shows Sanders actually sacrificed money for something more valuable. His objective was clear: join a team with strong championship chances while permanently raising his stature and increasing his market value for the following year. His goal was a Super Bowl ring, that tangible symbol of greatness he still lacked at the time. The public narrative of a business dispute was actually a facade for deeper, more personal conflict. Sanders himself revealed the emotional core of the feud in later reflections. He stated that Rison was mad that he left and felt hurt that his brother had abandoned him. Sanders admitted his own failing in the situation, confessing he didn't say anything because he didn't know how to tell Rison he was leaving. This unspoken wound between two men who considered themselves family became the true source of animosity. From Rison's perspective, Sanders' move wasn't merely professional. It was abandonment of a brother during a time when the Falcons were statistically underperforming and had failed to offer competitive contracts. The profound contradiction reveals the complete understanding of their feud. The business of the game was the trigger, but subsequent drama was fueled by raw, unaddressed emotions of loyalty and abandonment. Sanders chose legacy over money, But this powerful statement also caused deep personal wounds. These underlying tensions finally erupted during the Week 7 matchup of the 1994 season. The game, played in Atlanta, marked Sanders' first return to the Georgia Dome as a San Francisco player. The air was thick with anticipation, and conflict boiled over on the very first play. As the game commenced, Rison's hands pushed off hard against Sanders' face. The emotional and physical tension became a full-blown altercation. Sanders immediately retaliated, throwing 5 straight solid left hooks to Rison's head and helmet. The physical confrontation was a visceral, albeit brief, manifestation of professional and personal distance that had formed between them. Both players were fined $7,500 for the incident. However, the physical fight was merely prelude to Sanders' ultimate public declaration. Later in the game, he sealed his dominance with a 93-yard interception return for a touchdown. The play wasn't just a score, it was a carefully choreographed performance of emotional and professional triumph. Sanders was seen mockingly staring down the entire Falcons sideline before high-stepping into the end zone, a move that publicly rubbed salt in the wound. The post-game interview delivered the final, most famous monologue of the spectacle. "This is my house," Sanders declared. "I built this, and this is my house, and this will always be my house." The statement was both a reclamation of his legacy in the city and a final word in his personal battle with Rison. The confrontation provided a cathartic release for both men, a drama-fueled spectacle that gave them a public stage for private frustrations. The physical and verbal exchanges were a single, cohesive act of public resolution. Sanders not only proved his superiority on the field, but also asserted dominance over the narrative of his departure. Game statistics provide concrete evidence of this decisive victory. Sanders' singular game-changing play stood in stark contrast to Rison's limited production of just 5 receptions for 32 yards, underscoring the completeness of Sanders' performance that day. One of the most compelling aspects of the Sanders-Rison story is the swiftness of their reconciliation, a fact often overshadowed by the feud's drama. While media coverage painted a picture of prolonged animosity, personal accounts from both men and on-field visuals contradict this narrative. The on-field squabble lasted just 30 seconds, and what followed was immediate and profound resolution. Sanders and Rison, in their own words, got that out, and were cool for life right after the incident. Powerful visual confirmation came through a hug between the two men at midfield after the game concluded. The gesture demonstrated that for these individuals, the intensity of their rivalry was a fleeting, explosive moment, not an enduring state of being. The underlying respect and friendship were stronger than the public spectacle. As one observer noted, the moment was simply competition where Rison had to admit "you got me," and they could move on. This immediate resolution represents a key divergence from typical celebrity feud narratives. It reveals the conflict wasn't about fundamental animosity, but rather cathartic release of pent-up emotion. Once feelings of abandonment and betrayal were confronted directly, albeit violently and publicly, the foundation of their friendship immediately reasserted itself. The episode was a temporary explosion between two people with deep history, a test of their bond that ultimately passed with flying colors. The reconciliation wasn't a long-term healing process occurring years later. It was instantaneous, happening on the same field where conflict began. The true measure of Sanders-Rison brotherhood isn't found in their singular moment of conflict, but in the decades that followed. Their friendship has remained strong for years after the infamous 1994 game, providing a powerful case study of how professional rivalries can coexist with deep personal bonds. The most recent evidence of their enduring connection came in 2023, when Andre Rison visited Deion Sanders in Boulder, Colorado, where Sanders now serves as head coach of the University of Colorado football program. The two men, both coaches now, sat down to relive great stories and sobering truths. Their conversation was no longer about personal rivalries, but about shared professional and social missions. They discussed the disparity of African American coaches in Division I football, a topic demonstrating the maturity and evolution of their relationship. Rison's public defense of his friend highlights the culmination of their journey. He expressed frustration with those doubting Sanders' coaching abilities, stating, "You're talking to the greatest of all time at that position, and one of the greatest football players of all time." Rison's initial hurt stemmed from professional ambition that took Sanders away, but over time that same professional success became a source of pride and mutual admiration. What makes the Sanders Rison story even more remarkable is how it challenges everything we think we know about professional sports relationships. In an era where athletes are often portrayed as selfish individuals focused only on personal gain, their bond represents something different entirely. They showed that competitive fire and genuine care for each other can coexist, even when circumstances force them into opposition. The lessons from their relationship extend far beyond football. Their story demonstrates that true friendship isn't about avoiding conflict, but about having the courage to work through it. When Sanders made his controversial move to San Francisco, he could have handled the situation differently. He could have explained his reasoning to Rison beforehand, potentially avoiding the emotional wound that led to their public confrontation. But perhaps the conflict was necessary. Sometimes relationships need to be tested to prove their strength. The physical altercation at the Georgia Dome wasn't just about two athletes settling a score. It was about two friends finding a way to express years of unspoken hurt and frustration in the only language they knew at that moment. The immediate reconciliation afterward proves that their bond was built on something deeper than circumstance or convenience. They weren't friends because they played for the same team or lived similar lifestyles. They were friends because they genuinely respected and cared for each other as human beings. That kind of connection doesn't disappear because of a contract signing or even a public fight. Their evolution from teammates to rivals to friends, again, mirrors the complexity of all meaningful relationships. People grow, circumstances change, and sometimes we hurt the ones we care about most. But the Sanders Rison story shows that with mutual respect and genuine love, even the most damaged relationships can not only be repaired, but become stronger than before. The Sanders Rison saga represents a powerful narrative about conflict between professional ambition and personal loyalty. The business of the game, an impersonal force of contracts and career moves, had deeply personal and emotional impact on their relationship. The public feud wasn't a sign of broken friendship, but a fleeting, explosive test of its strength. Their story's core lies in the fact that brotherhood was ultimately stronger than professional pressures. It survived betrayal's sting, physical altercation, and national media scrutiny. Today, their continued friendship and shared purpose stand as testament to resilience of bonds forged in competition and cemented through mutual respect. Their story powerfully reminds us that while business forces can drive wedges between people, genuine love and shared history have power to overcome even the most volatile professional conflicts. Subscribe for more incredible stories about athletes whose journeys weren't what they seemed, and comment below about which sports friendship surprised you most.